Welcome back, everybody. How to choose a business bank account is a question we hear very frequently in the circles that we're involved in. And whether you're a limited company, when you must have one, or a sole trader, when Neil and I would both agree that you should have one, given the variety of options out there, it's not always the easiest question to answer. So Neil and I have spent a number of hours doing some research comparing the 9 bank accounts that we all have access to with the businesses we're involved in. We've compared them across 6 different countries, 6 different categories, looked at the eligibility requirements for them, confirmed which ones are actually banks and which ones are e-money institutions. So let's take a look, see which one we've concluded is the best and why. So to try and make this easier, we've come up with, as I say, the 6 categories. We've got a point system. So 1 is where we've just said is standard, what we'd expect. 0 if it falls below that standard, and 2 if there's something a little bit extra. First, before we go on to the first category of ease of opening, 2 things. One of, are they actually banks? And whether that matters or not, and also eligibility is another big thing. So there are some where you think that is the bank for you, but given their eligibility criteria, they might not be there. So when it comes to banks, we'll split them up into 3. There's the traditional banks, the ones in the high street. These are the ones you'll be familiar with: your Lloyds, your NatWest, your HSBC, etc. Metro I think it's the first new high street bank in 100 years. That's ones there. Those are the ones that you would expect. There's the new digital banks, which are your Starlings, Revolut or not. They're trying to become one. They're an e-money institution, which will come on to the last group, etc. At the moment. Monzo, then as I say, the e-money institutions at the end, which are your Tides, etc. Does it matter in terms of whether they're banks or you choose a bank or not? They are accounts. Does it matter whether it's a bank or an e-money institution account?
To some people it will, to others it won't. Whether you've got the FSCS
and that's
protection
the key difference,
is probably the key thing. So if you're going to have money in the account, up to £85,000 is protected if it is a bank and has FSCS protection. Some of the others, like Counting Up, which we'll come on to, they effectively use a trust account, so your money is in a different account. So if anything happened to them, your money would be protected. So there are other ways around it. And then the other thing we found as well is if they're not a bank and it's more of a e-money institution or a prepaid card, there are certain online services that you then can't use that account for, which again sort of defeats the object of having that account.
Eligibility, sometimes there are different things, and we'll throw up here of where it matters and where it doesn't. Certain sectors, in terms of certain banks, just won't touch you, unfortunately, like used cars, we found things like that. Precious metals, as we see in the examples there. Some will not take group structures. Different types of account, like Metro, as you pointed out, of their commercial account will take group structures, but then you've got a turnover of more than 2 million.
More than 2 million, and so that is, as we said, even within the bank. Metro have 3 levels of bank account. As not picking on them, others do as well, but they have 3 levels. And so you look at one and go, oh, it's great. We've got a group structure, and therefore we'll open an account with Metro. They've got a brilliant app, but actually because you're a group structure, you don't qualify for the smaller offering. So you have to go with the commercial online offering, which it's fine, it's great, but that doesn't have an app. So, but obviously you log on from your browser or whatever, but again, that may or may not be important to you.
And UK, some UK residents, there seems to be another thing. Some of the accounts that will go through, you have 100% of directors and PSCs will have to be, some are 50%. So while we're going through these accounts, that's just 2 distinctions we want to make of. It might not be an actual bank account, still might mean you'll be able to use it. And also eligibility, you might think it's right for you, but you'll need to check the eligibility requirements. And as I say, we'll put those examples up there just to give you that flavour. But that's just 2 key things to look at there. moving on to the first ease of opening.
Yeah.
What have we put for a 1? For that is just where the application was okay. And we could get out within a few days.
Yeah, I think the expectation was, if it was a 1, I should be able to fill in the forms and whatever online, send it off, and within a few days actually have an account, and a day or so later get the actual card through. That is what, realistically, that should be the basic service that the bank should be able to offer. So that was a 1. If they failed or delivering that, we gave them a 0, and if they did better than that, we gave them a 2.
But if ease of opening is a key thing for you, I wouldn't go with Lloyds. So that's been my journey of. So I put an application in, and I went fine. The application online was okay. Then I got a phone call back saying they wanted more information. I gave them that information, and then didn't hear anything for weeks. The 6-week time went by when they said it would there, which I would argue is a long time anyway compared to others we'll talk about. I then phoned them up and they said, all right, my application hadn't actually been processed at all because they didn't have all the information they needed. They made me touch confused given the last conversation I had with them. So I then had to go through and then they said the 6-week clock started again at that point. So I ended up, I think close to 8 weeks later, I got the account. So that was just a big fat 0. I didn't know where it was in the process.
Yeah.
I had no idea, whatever, just an easy 0.
And I think, one of the big sort of things we hope to give people when they're using our videos and getting information from us is giving them information that helps them quickly do some of the basics of business, and if you're starting a business, you need a bank account and you just want to get it done.
Yeah.
But as we're going to come on, you want to make sure you get it done, but with the right bank. So even if Lloyds are the right bank, 8 weeks, several phone calls, having to check, no interaction to let you know that, oh, sorry, it's taking a while, but give us another couple of weeks. Even that would give you some. But if you were, trying to get a business up and running, you need a bank account. People can't pay you without a bank account. You can't actually trade with that. And for them to just think that's acceptable, my experience with HSBC is exactly the same. They're absolutely hopeless. It's just antiquated, slow. You've got to speak to someone in person. You've got to do this. It was.
They'll process as quickly as possible.
That's right. I mean, they just, I don't want to say to be fair because I don't really want to be fair, but the point I would make is HSBC do have now a fully online offering for a brand they call Kinetic, which is effectively for freelancers and one-man band contractor companies. If you're that, you'll be eligible for Kinetic, which they say you'll get an account. It's online. 48 hours you'll have the account. But it's app-based only, so you're part of the HSBC organisation, but you're not actually part of the HSBC bank as such. Yeah. But again, that as we've come on with some of the others, that might work for you. But let's stop. Otherwise, we'll just be ranting about Lloyds and HSBC for the next hour. But,
and the good experience we've had, so Revolut for me, I think was a 20-minute application, and then I got something back pretty much the same day or the following day. Monzo was a very similar thing, very quickly through the app. Now I must say, I think it helped that I had a personal Monzo account already, so just straight into the app. Clicked a few buttons, gave a bit of information, but obviously they already knew who I was and all that sort of stuff. It was a very simple process, but and to be fair, I mean, I've opened an account with them for another business, and it was similar. It was very good.
And I think so. We've given Monzo and Revolut a 2, as we did Counting Up. Who actually, once we'd formed our company, we got a direct mail from Counting Up, 2 hours start to finish of getting things set up.
And the card arrived
a couple of days later, we had the card. We were all good to go. So we've given them a 2.
To Metro, we put a plus beside Metro because, and I've done it's for one of the businesses that I've been involved in. If all the directors go to a branch, you can have it set up and opened, and we did it within 90 minutes. So you walk out with the card. So that's as in, it's not always going to be possible for all the directors and the people to go to the business. It was in this instance, and it did happen. So it's not a 2 because it's probably not always that feasible. However, they are pretty good, and we'll throw the stats up there in terms of
and I think that's the point.
Within same day.
Point we're making. If you want to have the card and everything done within 90 minutes, and there is a Metro branch close enough to you, and you can get all the directors and everyone there, you would give that a 2 for your personal service. You'd be saying there isn't another bank that I could have done that with, so I'm giving them a 2. But what we've given them is a 1 plus on the basis that overall they give you the what you're expecting as the standard service from the bank, but actually it is a bit better, or there is this other thing. So that's why we've given them a 1 plus.
Okay. Moving on to mandates. So for us, standard should just be you should be able to let anyone you want get access to your account at the level you choose. As in that should be standard. As in whether that's accountants, advisors, all the directors, etc. You should just be in control of whatever you want to be. So a 1 is where that is possible in terms of you can have multiple directors, you can have outside advisors, accountants, etc. Lawyers if you wanted to have access to, and it can happen. As in you can get it done. It might not always be the slickest and easiest process, but that's a 1. You can't get it done. We were given a 2, which after my experience with ease of opening, I struggled to give them 2, but Lloyds can do it. It is an online process, and that flexibility you can do online. I think that is back to the thing. It probably should be standard in this day and age, but it's a 2. It's a 2 in this instance, and Revolut's the same.
Yeah. So you say it should be standard, and we've only given it to 2 of the banks that we looked at. So
that's not been your experience again though with HSBC.
HSBC, some months ago, a business that I'm involved with, we bought another company. They banked with HSBC. We want to change the mandates. We've sent the forms in 3 or 4 times, and HSBC have now turned off the online banking and won't let anyone have access to the bank. And we have to go to the branch, which is 50 miles away, do everything in branch. But that again just shows, just how slow, and the amount I had to print out forms and sign them and scan them back in, and
shows why the digital challengers have come. I think in terms of the way the sort of traditional banks have been, and I don't think we'll be the first to think into the traditional banks, especially, can be frustrating to say the least. In terms of the other 2s, Revolut again, as I say, was online. Wise, what did it online and was very good. It was almost too easy, I think, with Wise, as in there was no double check of.
Yeah, literally, you sent me a link to so Graham had set up the account, sent me a link to say I want Neil to have access to it. I clicked on it and I had full access just there. I was like, if someone else had been sitting at my computer and got that email, they would now have full access to everything. Whereas with Revolut, where we did the same, I had to prove that I was Neil, who had received the email. So that was why we felt, Wise, it's almost too easy, not quite enough security probably for it to get a 2.
Tide is a 0 because it's there's basically one login. So there was a company I was involved in who had a Tide account, and we wanted to switch the login from me as a director to another director, which was not possible. And Tide's advice was close the account down and start another one with the other director as the login. Which is just, I know I'm laughing, but it's just like I cannot believe why that is the advice that we got. As in, no, I went, we're both directors, it's okay, I just want him to have access rather than me. Close the account down and have another one. But as I say, we're laughing at these things, but it's not funny in terms of it's.
And I think the other thing we're laughing at that. So we've given Tide a 0 for obvious, as Graham explains. But actually, if you are the sole director, it's just you. You're just going to do the stuff yourself. You might not care. That's all it does. We sort of want to keep giving that caveat that we're giving it a 0 in comparison to the other more flexible things that are out there. But when you come to make the choice for yourself, there might be other things that are more important to you. And just the fact that only I can use it or whatever, and similar with counting up, that was the same. You only get one login, and we've managed to get around it by sharing a login and having
which I'm not sure they want us to do.
No, I mean the sort of unintended consequences of that, and what that would mean is if anything went wrong, they'd just be able to say, well, you shared your login, so you haven't got any protections or whatever. But that again is why we've given them a 0. But if it was me just as a freelancer,
but I don't think it's unreal. You'd want, as in, to have, if you're an accountant or a bookkeeper, it just makes life easier. Just even if you're a one-man band, to let them have access just makes life easier.
Yeah. Well, and I think even though we've given tied to 0, as you say, you can't even have as you say, bookkeeper. So that means not only am I the only one who can make the payments, but I've then either got to print out bank statements to give to the book. I've got to do all the bookkeeping myself. I've got to do all, and so there are other consequences to the fact that you're restricting the access to the statements or the view only or whatever it might be, because you're then saying, well, you've got to do everything yourself, or there we are, digital bank, but you're going to actually have to print out the statements, or at least save them as a PDF or something to send them across, which sort of defeats the object.
But I think multi-user is a reasonable thing in terms of that you're looking for. Next category, we're looking at online services, apps, etc., and links to different pieces of accounting software. I think the standard we thought for this would be there is an app and desktop access sometimes. I know whether it's a bit old-fashioned, but I like to be able to do certain things in the desktop, certain things in the app that are great. You want links to all the sort of standard accounting packages now, your Xero, your QuickBooks, Sage, etc. So I mean that I think should probably be.
And I think some of the banks, when you look at them, they make a big thing of the fact they've got their own accounting software or their own invoicing software or their own whatever it is they've got. And
which is something I charge with, to be fair.
Some of them
is free, sometimes there is a charge.
And I think our view is the first thing to say is we haven't tested them all, so we can't say that actually that product is not as good as Xero or Sage or QuickBooks or ClearBooks or any of the other sort of more traditional ones. But what I would say is they're not actual accounting software companies, they're banks. So I would always be a bit dubious as to will it be as good as any one of the others, and if they're charging for it, why not buy or subscribe to one of the more traditional ones? And some of them seem to be, although they are accounting software, it's very much might only really be suitable for that sort of freelancer, because it's create invoices from the app, send invoices from the app. It has a payment link so your clients or customers can pay you from the invoice. So I can see how that would work for people, and that might be all they need. You take a picture of your expense receipt, it uploads in, you code it. So for a freelancer or contractor, I can see it's probably
still that I would always be. I'm always wary of these things because if you want to switch, you're tied into stuff. It's not the bank's job, I would say, to be producing.
Well, that's presumably why they've done it, to
tie you in rather than be for you. As in, you might have a problem with them a year down the line, and you've got your accounting practices all going with their software. I think leave the software to the accounting software specialists, etc. Because if you want to move bank, then you can just do that. If you're tied into one of these accounting packages, I know it might feel easy, but I wouldn't want to do that from my perspective. Another caveat, probably Lloyds, I'm giving them a 1 from a bit. I've only the account for a couple of days, so I've not done as much testing as I wanted. If you'd want a follow-up video on Lloyds, once I've had more of a chance to research it, just type Lloyds in the comments, or the name of another bank which you'd want us to compare what we're not covering today. Just put that bank name in the comments and we'll do a similar comparison for them. But they've got a 1 based on what I've seen. It does do that standard stuff. I think the 2s we've given, just to go there, Starling has they call it their marketplace, and it's the connectivity. I think is excellent. It's not just the accounting software; it's other software, HR software, and Slack, other types of productivity software. I think again that probably will become the one from that point of view, but it's just really well set up, as is Revolut, where I think it's called the hub, and I think that's where that genuine integration with specialists in different fields of different I think is excellent from that point of view. Counting up again got a 0. It was only they had their own software again, but it's app only. There's no desktop access, which,
as I've said, we previously Metro have these sort of 3 different sort of levels of bank account, and one of them has an app. 2 of them don't have access to the app. One of them has greater sort of mandate controls and flexibilities, and the others don't. So it makes it very difficult to then give a score to Metro Bank. You have to give a score to the Metro Bank business account or business plus or commercial. So again, just be worth.
So commercial's sure over again. It's sort of over 2-3 million.
It's
and there's no app. There's no app.
There's no app. You know, and when I challenge them on that, they just say, well, it'll work on the browser on your phone, but that isn't always as easy, on your phone. And logging in with the dual authentications and various things like that can make life a bit difficult.
And I think the other thing to is to look for deals. I think that's there are certain deals where that connectivity is with software. I think
so like Metro Bank give you 25% off ClearBooks. I can't remember, was it Monzo give you 6 months free, 0 access. So there are things out there that can certainly save you a bit of money. So worth doing.
Yeah. Moving on to our next category of fees. This was a tough one. This was not easy. I think for fees, I think we took a view of standard was, and again, there are different levels of account for different ones, was where a lot of them there were sort of a monthly charge for most of them, whether that be between sort of 4 to sort of 8 quid, that sort of thing. But then transaction costs, there weren't really any on top of that. Cash and checks is probably a big thing to talk about. Cash and checks, they're all going to be charged you. No matter what. So if you're a cash heavy business, it's a difficult one.
If you go with one of the digital banks, they all have arrangements with like the post office for you to deposit cash, but it's expensive. But less and less people have cash obviously these days, but it's worth bearing that in mind that if you've got cash, you want to have proximity to where you can deposit it, making sure you know that. And then B, what are they going to charge you for?
And they're all going to charge. They're all wanting to push stuff online to make stuff electronic payments, etc. So that's just something to bear in mind. Where we gave the 2s and the 0s, the 0s, I think we came a lot. It's just complexity. Some of them were just unbelievably complex, and whether it's the right thing. It's just a bit of, this was already hard enough by this point before we got to fees, and then the brain starts hurting. It's a bit of, you've made it too complicated for me. I'm going to move on to something else. And we certainly found that with Revolut. I think there were 4 levels. Tide, there were 4 levels. And Wise, it was 45 quid to open an account per the transaction fee as well. So, I mean, these per transaction things add up, and 45 quid is expensive just to get it set up.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that was right. The same with Metro. Again, they've got 3 different levels, and if you have more than $6,000 in the bank, there's a different level. So again, if you can take the time to go all the way through it, you might find that it works better for you. But again, we were looking for transparency, and even there, we gave a 2 to Starling because it was the cheapest and thing. But again, there was a little bit of a bitter taste that nowhere does it mention. Well, hidden away is the cash, and they're no worse than anyone else. They don't want cash, and so they're going to charge you if you need to deposit cash at the post office. Exactly the same as everyone else. But it just felt that they weren't being quite as transparent as they might be. Having said that, we still gave it 2 because
it was good. It was 0, so there was no charge compared to the others. It was 0 a month, and there were sort of flexible add-ons. So there was a Euro add-on and a US add-on, which was something I think I would have considered for one of the businesses I'm involved in. So I use Monzo plus Wise for the international bit. That probably would have worked best, as in would have definitely been an option of Starling plus the Euro and US add-on, and that was just, it was zero, and then you could add on what you would use versus others where it was a sort of £5 a month or 6 or 7 for the comparable. Credit, and this is sort of back to our earlier thing of if you're a bank or not a bank, this is where it gets reflected in credit, doesn't it?
Yeah, and in fact we were sort of like, well, what do they offer in terms of credit card with the account, overdraft, loans, invoice discounting, asset finance, all of those things. And really only the traditional high street banks offer all of those things. So so really that should probably be a one, that if they're offering traditional banking credit facilities. But because none of the digital banks generally don't offer a lot of those things, we found it difficult to say, well, if that's a one, if someone offers a loan and an overdraft but no credit card, or someone offers overdrafts, no loans, and someone offers nothing. So we ended up giving the traditional banks a 2 because they have the full range of credit facilities.
But there's a big caveat to that, isn't it?
You still got to get it.
Yeah, and given our experience, that is not, they are very conservative these days. And I suppose the hard bit is it's almost like its computer says no. There's no discussion with it. You could know probably the CEO and the banks and some of them, as in, but if the computer says no, it's going to say no.
Absolutely. And I think, again, when you're starting out, all of the traditional banks will have their thresholds around what level of customer service you're going to get. So, I can say, well, I've had this great experience with Lloyds Bank because I was dealing with the manager who I've known for years, and there's a long-standing relationship and helps us with the application, blah blah blah. We got a loan or an overdraft or whatever. But if you're starting out, you won't have the track record, but B, you won't even have a human being to talk to. You're lumped into the call centre. You apply online. You get a yes or no. There's no right of appeal or whatever. So again, it does depend. And equally, if you're not needing credit, that isn't, again, those high street banks. If I don't need, we have other videos around what is invoice discounting or asset finance or whatever, but some of the, they're relatively mainstream. Lots of people use them, but not everyone uses them. They're not appropriate for every business. They're not required by every business. You might not need an overdraft. You might not need a loan. So again, we're going back to our caveat of, if it's important to you, then you're not going to be going with Revolut, Tide, Counting Up, and
so
Wise,
they are,
because there aren't any credit.
But they're brokers, as in, but you don't need to be with them to get those.
No,
they're just
they'll all have reference to it on their account, but they're all using Funding Circle or iWalker or whoever, who you can go to direct.
Anyway, and I think that's as in, it's probably a big cat is that overdraft and loan, and even just a credit card from that point, which you wouldn't think is a big thing in this day and age, but it is a big thing for a lot of those. So I think, like Counting Up, for example, even something simple of, we couldn't pay the Google email bill with that because they don't take prepaid cards. I mean, it's silly little things like that where it does have an impact. But even with the big banks, which are there of, I think that's the thing probably that people need to understand now of, I don't think there are any personal relationships now when it comes to these banks compared to years ago where probably you had relationships. So it doesn't matter. You could be banking with them for 10 years. You could have the best credit with them. If that spreadsheet says no, it's just it's a no, which is frustrating.
You wonder how the banks have managed to get it so wrong. And I because we've been doing this, I've been thinking about it. We've been talking about it. And as I said to you the other day, is when I go back to when I first sort of got to know bank managers, and you built a relationship and you worked on clients together, and they knew you, they knew they could trust information you prepared and gave them, and they worked with the client. You'd speak to bank managers, and in particular, I would say NatWest, probably going back 20, 25 years, people who were my sort of peer group in the bank, they were proud to work for that bank. Because they actually had some authority and autonomy and were able, because of their position, to help businesses and work with people and genuinely sort of be with them. And then over the years, it's just their authority has just been moved away to this faceless credit. Where everybody's got to go to credit, and the bank manager's now having to, credit won't. I did a forecast the other day for someone and sort of, I need you to help me. We need to move that because credit won't like that. And just like
there's a survey that was recently, and we'll put up the quote there, but it was around SMEs particular, not feeling supported, not feeling that they've any access for things for expansion, etc. A variety of things where it just be passed over for bigger clients, etc. And I think that's where I don't think it's going to change from that point of view, but I think it's just for people to be front of, do not expect any loyalty. I wouldn't expect loyalty back in return.
No,
particularly.
don't
so therefore,
it.
As we'll sort of come into the summary of, if you're not liking what you're getting, I would just switch.
Yeah.
From that point of view, I don't think that loyalty is going to be paid back.
Yeah. I mean, and the only, and therefore from the criteria that we've done, what's most important for you? If it's fees, go with the bank that gives you 12 months free banking. If at the end of the 12 months you can get a better deal somewhere else, switch.
And you probably saw why Metro saw an opening there, the first high street bank coming in, 7 days a week. They saw that because of what the traditional banks were doing. So it will probably feel at times that we're giving the traditional banks a hard time. I don't have a problem with that.
They deserve it.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. But when it comes to credit, they offer everything that there, whether you'll get it or not is a different question.
Yeah.
Moving on to customer service, probably as you'll probably guess, Lloyds, Lloyds and HSBC get a 0. As I say, not just that account opening thing where, and I say I've counted 10, but they're basically calling me a liar a couple of times when they're saying we've been trying to call you all the time, etc. and you never got back to us, and I just eventually say, please stop saying that, because whoever took that call at one point didn't type it up. Just because your computer, in fact, the computer says no, just because it's on your computer thing, doesn't mean it didn't happen. Lloyds talked to me, said everything that they need, and then 6 weeks later said they didn't. So a clear 0 for them. HSBC, I know you've got lots of
several anecdotes, as I say, when I've tried to open an account with them, when I've tried to change things or do things, it's
let's make it hard for you. Yeah.
I'd almost say they don't want the business. Is it some sort of part of their banking license? We have to pretend to do all these things. And then you think, well, why have they bothered with Kinetic then? Why have they set up this whole thing to attract small businesses? I think one of the things on their website, they've set aside £250 million or something to help fund, or was it 25 billion even? But they're a big number that we're going to help UK businesses grow, and we're going to and they say all these right things, and you think
the adverts are great.
Yeah, and I just think it must actually be part of their banking license that we need to pretend we're going to do all these things because they get the government will like us, but actually we'll just make it as hard as possible for people to actually do any of them.
And they're never going to say it, but you would rather they just said that of, we have to do this because part of our bank and the government wants us to do it, but we don't really want it. And you just, everything would probably be just far happier rather than pretending that they do. Yeah. In terms of one, we gave ones where there is that general support, as in through this, we've both been in touch with the different banks or whatever, and particularly the ones that are online, you might not get an immediate response, but you do tend to get a response pretty well, and there's a sort of chat record of what's there, which is good. The 1 pluses we gave to Starling, and I think it was to Monzo as well, they're 24/7, I think, for certain of their accounts, I think, which sometimes you might want from that point of view. And 2, I think Metro, from that point of view, we gave a 2. They do have the branches, they're not all across the country from that point of view, but they're 7 days a week. And I think there's a quote which will flash up from a journalist who was writing, don't necessarily want their bank to be a brand, they want to be like their pilot, sensible, etc. And sometimes when things get tough or difficult, you do want to speak to someone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as the journalist said, the digital banks have made things much simpler, and some of the things we've been talking about, like ease of opening, this, that, and the other, they've all made it very streamlined and super efficient, and hats off to them for doing that. But if something goes wrong, or you've got a more complex need, you want to talk something through, having someone to go and talk to is more important. And depending on the level of your business and whatever, although you might have HSBC have branches, Lloyds have branches and stuff, you need to be of a particular size to actually have an individual there. Whereas with Metro Bank, you do tend to have a personal relationship with someone. They'll be in the branch. Sometimes they might just be in the area, different branches, but you can go and speak to someone. And get things resolved.
And I think some of them try to make it a paid thing, as you pay a certain amount for an account and you will have someone dedicated to talk to.
Yeah.
As I say, whether that makes any difference.
Yeah.
Whereas we've talked about, not sure, but as in, I think that's why we give Metro that too, basically, because they have that 7 days a week, 4 branches. Again, they tend to be city centres, so if you're not in the city centre, that probably doesn't apply. But I think sometimes people want to talk to people, and understandably, particularly when it comes to finance.
Yeah. Which then brings us on to the totals, I suppose, in the league table, and although we'll show you in a moment, but the various criteria, and we talked through what we've done. So certain bank has come out on top, and the bank that's come out on top with our scoring system is Starling with 8+. If you remember, we gave them a plus for the being 24/7 customer service, but they don't have a branch network, so therefore they didn't get the 2. So they're an 8+. But again, that would depend. If you look at like Metro are a 7+, but if you don't want the branch network, you don't need the branch network. If you took that 2 away, they would be a 5+. How would that compare?
Yeah.
You don't have to use all our criteria. So like for us, as we said, the mandates we feel is an important thing of being able to let other people have access to your account. If you don't care, then the fact that Tide got a 0 and HSBC got a 0, you might not care, and you might say, well, if I discount that, actually a different bank becomes more appealing to me than our league table. So I think that's, as I said, we've sort of said all the way through, what we're hoping to do is not say to you, everybody go to Starling, they're 8+.
Yeah.
What we've said is, we think these are the criteria that are important.
We started this, so we said, as in we thought it would be relatively straightforward. It is, I can see why people's heads hurt, and this question comes up again and again and again, just because not only are there lots of options now with the e-money institutions, the e-money accounts, which we talked about earlier, the differences between the banks, but within them, 4 levels of accounts, etc. So I mean, there can be sort of 15 options out there. If they've all got 4 options, that's 60 things.
It's a huge,
60 things you're looking through. It's just too much from that point of view.
And when I first started out advising people, someone would come and say, I'm starting a business, I need a bank account. First thing we would say is, who do you bank with? Go and talk to them first. Mainly because of the ease of opening. Because every other bank, if they don't know you, they're going to go through their KYC. And going back 20 or 30 years, it was painful and it took time. But these days, as you said, the variety of things now, and actually, the traditional banks are the worst for ease of opening. So going to your existing bank, if it happens to be Lloyds, would be a disaster. You'd be much better off going to one of the others. And I think that's what we hope we've done, is we've given you some information about each of the individual banks, but more importantly, make, like we said at the start, don't want you opening an account and then once you've opened you realise your bookkeeper can't have access to the bank, and that actually is really important to you, because it's not obvious. When you go on, I can open an account with Tide really easy. Great, I've done it.
Yeah.
Right, okay, how do I get my accountant or bookkeeper to look at it? I can't.
Yeah.
So, again, it's about trying to help you not waste time. Like we said at the beginning, we want to make this, you're one of your first things on your to-do list. You want to get it ticked off, I better get a bank account. And what we hope we've done is made it easier for you to choose the right one for you. And the fact that Starling have come out 8+ on ours, they might not be the right for you because, we've still given them only ones on certain things. If you need a credit card, Starling don't do credit cards. Does that matter? I can go and get a credit card from someone else.
Yeah.
So
and I think that's probably having multiple accounts is probably no bad thing either. If you get, I know I heard a story of someone was locked out of their account because the bank had got them confused with a money launderer, and then they couldn't pay staff. Having multiple accounts is probably a good, sensible thing from that perspective. As I say, loyalty, I wouldn't, at the moment, I wouldn't genuinely think loyalty is going to be paid back from that perspective. Based on this, Neil and I are thinking whether it would develop a decision tool which might take you through some questions and spit out answers at the end to guide you through. If that's something that you think would be of value to you, please write decision tool in the comments below, and we'll look at see whether we can do that for you. Hope this has been helpful. As I say, I hope you can now stop doing hours and hours that we have looking through bank accounts, and this has made things easier. And once again, as always, all the very best in your business journey.